Have you ever been right there, like right on the edge of getting something you really wanted, a promotion maybe, or finally building a healthy relationship, or just finishing that huge project, and then somehow you end up being the one to press the self-destruct button? Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are really getting into that whole cycle of self-sabotage. We're using insights from Brianna Wiest's book, The Mountain Is You. Our aim here is simple, to give you a kind of map, a way to conquer what feels like the biggest obstacle, that internal mountain of doubt, fear, and those habits that just keep getting in your own way.
Yeah, and what's really going on, under the surface, it's always some kind of internal conflict. Self-sabotage isn't just like accidentally messing up. It's these deeper behaviors, thought patterns, often totally subconscious, that actively steer you away from what you could achieve long term. It's like your present self is fighting your future self.
Right. We kind of know the usual suspects, don't we? Like procrastination, putting things off for so long that failing becomes almost inevitable. It feels weirdly safer somehow. Or maybe perfectionism, which isn't really about high standards, is it? It's more like setting the bar impossibly high so you never actually have to start or finish.
Exactly. That's a classic one. Or that really corrosive negative self-talk, that voice constantly saying you're not good enough or you don't deserve it. When you actually look at these patterns, you start to see they aren't just little flaws. They're like an architecture of avoidance built to keep you safe from things you think might hurt you later.
So if you've ever felt like you're basically your own worst enemy, definitely stick with us. We're not just listing off the problems today. We want to dig into the roots, find out where these cycles start, and actually discover some practical ways to change things for real. So let's start that climb, yeah? Why do we even build these mountains inside ourselves?
Okay, so the underlying causes, they almost always boil down to trying to avoid pain, which usually shows up as fear. Wiest talks about the obvious one. Fear of failure, preferring the sort of safety of doing nothing over the risk of actually trying and falling short.
That makes sense.
But what's really interesting, I think, is the flip side, the fear of success.
Yeah, people hear fear of success and they think, oh, I won't have time, or it'll be too much pressure. But the book digs deeper, doesn't it?
It really does. It's not just about being busy or having new responsibilities, although that's part of it. It's more this anxiety about losing the identity you already know, the one you've kind of mastered.
Ah, okay. Like if you succeed.
Exactly. Success forces a really profound change in how you see yourself and maybe how others see you too. So if your identity is tied up in being, say, the struggling artist or the helpful person who's always number two, well, actually achieving big success means shedding that familiar skin. And you have to rebuild who you are at this higher, maybe unfamiliar level. Your whole system kind of resists that huge psychological shift. It feels safer to stay where you are.
So that resistance, that pullback to what's familiar, even if it's actually kind of harmful, that's often tied to deeper stuff.
Yes.
Unresolved emotional things.
Yes, absolutely. When trauma hasn't been fully processed, maybe it was neglect or betrayal or just intense criticism growing up, it builds these defensive walls inside. And those walls, they often manifest as self-sabotage. So for instance, if you were badly betrayed in the past, your subconscious might build this whole system where you push people away now. You avoid real intimacy. Why? To guarantee you won't get hurt like that again.
So the self-sabotage is actually, it's trying to protect you, but in a really misguided way.
Precisely. It thinks it's helping.
Yeah, that's powerful.
Yeah.
It reframes things, doesn't it? Like procrastination isn't just laziness. It could be a defense mechanism tied to an old wound. And this is why the book stresses the need for inner work.
Right. Yes, and inner work. Yeah. It's not just, writing down happy thoughts in a journal. It's more like systematically digging down to find the trauma, the negative beliefs, like I'm not worthy, that formed the foundation for your self-sabotage in the first place. It takes real self-reflection, introspection, to actually uncover where those limiting beliefs started.
Okay. So if that inner work is like uncovering the base of the mountain, finding the roots, then emotional intelligence, or EQ, that's the essential toolkit, right? The gear we need to actually start climbing. Let's look at that in segment 2. How EQ helps us navigate this climb.
Right. Emotional intelligence. Basically, it's your ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions. And importantly, understand the emotions of others, too. Wiest really argues that EQ is crucial for self-mastery because it lets you break that cycle of just reacting instantly to your feelings.
Yeah, because if you have low EQ, you're just kind of swept away by whatever emotion hits you first, right? Fear, stress, anxiety, and you just react on impulse. That fear pops up and bam, you avoid the thing you need to do. That's procrastination leading straight back to self-sabotage.
Exactly. Whereas high EQ creates this crucial pause, a delay mechanism. It starts with self-awareness, just being able to identify without judging yourself, okay, I feel really anxious right now. Why? Because this new opportunity feels a bit like that time I failed before.
Okay, so recognizing is the first step.
It is. And once you have that awareness, you can move to self-regulation. This is where you learn to pause, take a breath, reflect, and then consciously respond in a way that actually supports your long-term goals instead of just, reacting impulsively based on that immediate fear or discomfort.
That difference, responding versus reacting, that feels like everything, doesn't it?
Okay.
So, for you listening, if you want to build up this emotional regulation muscle, what are the actual tools? What does the source suggest?
Well, it circles back to those inner work techniques we touched on. Mindfulness is really key. Practicing observing that fear or anxiety as it comes up, but without immediately buying into it or acting on it.
Just watching it.
Just watching it. And journaling. Writing down your thoughts and feelings helps you process them, and you start to see the patterns, you identify the triggers. Oh, every time this happens, I feel that.
Right, you see it laid out.
Exactly. And then critically, there's cognitive reframing.
Okay, can you give us a really specific example? Like, how does that reframe actually sound inside your head?
Sure. So let's say you mess up a presentation. Your old self-sabotaging thought might be, ugh, I totally bombed that. I am just terrible at public speaking. I should just avoid it.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
But with high EQ, using cognitive reframing, you pause. You acknowledge it didn't go perfectly, but then you might think something like, okay, that didn't go as planned, but it actually gave me some really specific feedback on where I need to work on my delivery for next time. This isn't failure, it's data.
Shifting from shame to learning.
Precisely. You change the meaning of the event.
Okay, brilliant. Let's unpack the next really crucial tool in the kit. And this one feels like maybe the toughest shift for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Taking personal responsibility.
Yeah, this is where the real power shift happens. Think about the opposite, the victim mindset. That's the belief that all your problems are caused only by things outside yourself. Bad luck, unfair people, difficult circumstances. And while, sure, external factors exist, constantly focusing on them shifts all the responsibility away from you. And if nothing is your responsibility, you have no power to change anything. You're stuck.
But hang on, what about things like the genuine impact of past trauma or systemic issues or just plain bad luck? Doesn't taking responsibility feel a bit like blaming the victim sometimes? How does Wiest handle that balance?
That's a really important distinction, and Wiest is clear on this. Acknowledging that something difficult or unfair happened to you is vital for healing. You have to validate that pain. But personal responsibility, that starts where your power to respond begins. Today.
Yeah.
Right now. You didn't choose the trauma, no, but you do get to choose how you manage its effects now, how you react to the triggers it left behind.
Okay, so it's about owning your response even if you didn't own the initial event.
Exactly. It's ultimately empowering. You're saying, okay, this happened and I'm taking the wheel now. You reclaim control over your own path, even if the terrain is difficult because of the past.
And that completely changes how you see mistakes too, right? They stop being these like sources of shame.
And they become necessary data points, learning opportunities. Absolutely. Let's make it concrete. Say you get a really harsh performance review at work.
Okay.
The victim mindset goes, my boss is just unfair. They don't get me. There's nothing I can do. And that leads to feeling angry, maybe resentful, probably avoiding the boss. More self-sabotage, basically.
Right. But the personal responsibility approach.
That approach acknowledges the sting, the disappointment, sure, but then it immediately focuses on what you can control, it sounds like. Okay, I accept that I delivered the project late, as the review states. My reaction to the feedback wasn't great either. I need to own the timeline I agreed to. My solution is to start using that time blocking software we talked about starting tomorrow. And maybe I need to practice receiving feedback differently.
So you acknowledge the truth, even the uncomfortable parts, without getting stuck in blame, and then shift straight to, okay, what's the next constructive action?
Exactly. That's the core of it.
Okay, that focus on continuous constructive action. It brings us perfectly to our final segment, the ultimate goal here. Building resilience and actually learning to transform pain into power. This is like the stamina you need to keep climbing that mountain, right? Even when you stumble or fall back a bit.
Yes, and resilience is so much more than just bouncing back. That sounds a bit too simple. It's really the capacity to integrate the lessons from setbacks, to adapt, and to keep moving forward with emotional flexibility and mental strength. If you have low resilience, that one harsh review we talked about, it could send you spiraling right back down to the bottom of the mountain, back into old self-sabotage patterns.
And this definitely requires a growth mindset, doesn't it? Seeing challenges not as like proof that you're inadequate, but as opportunities to actually develop new skills and strengths.
Yeah.
You learn from the failure instead of letting it paralyze you.
That connection is absolutely central to Wiest's whole framework. The idea of transforming pain into power. It literally means taking those really difficult experiences, rejection, loss, emotional hardship, and finding ways to turn them into fuel, into tools for empowerment. Think about it. Pain forces a level of awareness, a depth of self-reflection that comfort just never does.
That's true. Comfort keeps you stagnant sometimes.
Right. And this transformation, it's not magic, it's a conscious process. It involves reframing the narrative around the pain.
Yeah.
You have to actively work to see the hardship differently, not as some random curse designed just to stop you, but maybe as a challenge that was actually meant to strengthen you somehow, to reveal something important about yourself or what you're capable of.
Okay, so reframing is step one.
Then comes acceptance, really acknowledging that pain, difficulty, setbacks, they are just part of life, part of growth. Resisting that reality just causes more suffering. And finally, trying to cultivate gratitude, not necessarily for the painful event itself, but for the strength you gained overcoming it, or the lessons it forced you to learn, shifting focus from the hurt to the growth.
And when you can actually do that, when you can look back at some of your toughest times and see them not just as scars, but as sources of strength or motivation, that's heading towards self-mastery, isn't it?
Absolutely. That is self-mastery. It's the ability to regulate your internal world, your thoughts, your emotions, and align your actions with your deepest values, regardless of external circumstances. When you can control your emotional reaction to adversity, when you're not just automatically driven by those old defensive self-sabotaging habits, you're finally acting from a place of intentional, conscious choice. And that's the signal that you've genuinely started to break that cycle for good.
Wow. Okay, what a deep dive that was. We started by really looking at self-sabotage, understanding its roots in things like trauma and that surprising fear of changing our identity. And we talked about equipping ourselves with the right gear, building that emotional intelligence, and finding the right map, taking personal responsibility, owning our responses, all to make that deliberate choice to start climbing.
And what's so powerful about the central metaphor, I think, the mountain isn't the external goal you're trying to reach. The mountain is you. It's the fear, the doubt, the unresolved pain inside you. The transformation, the real win, it doesn't just happen when you get to the top. It happens during the climb itself. With every single conscious step, you take up that internal mountain.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. Wiest really emphasizes that this kind of personal growth, it's a continual climb. Even after you conquer this first big mountain, let's say you finally overcome procrastination in one area of your life, there will always be new challenges, maybe deeper layers of this stuff that emerge. So the question is, what new mountain, what maybe more subtle or complex area of emotional mastery does adopting this whole mindset potentially unlock for you, even after you reach that initial goal you set? Keep climbing.